I know times are hard, but you cannot give up on life. Look around you. Look at what we achieved together. Keep pushing forward.
The rain hammered against the zinc roof of the Okonkwo family mansion like angry fists demanding entry. I stood in the grand living room, my 3-month-old daughter Amara crying against my chest as my mother-in-law's words cut deeper than any blade could. You are no longer welcome in this house, Zainab. Pack your things and leave. Tonight. My hands trembled as I clutched Amara tighter. Mama Grace, please. It's past midnight. Where will I go with a baby in this storm? She turned away from me, her expensive lace wrapper rustling with the movement. My father-in-law, Chief Okonkwo, sat in his leather chair smoking his pipe, not even looking in my direction. My husband Chitty stood by the window, his back to us all. The man who had promised to love me forever now couldn't even face me. Chitty, I whispered, my voice breaking. Tell them this is wrong. He finally turned, and the coldness in his eyes made me feel like I was looking at a stranger. 3 years of marriage, and now he looked at me like I was dirt beneath his Italian leather shoes. My mother is right, Zainab. This marriage was a mistake from the beginning. You brought nothing to this family. Your father was just a poor mechanic who died, leaving you with nothing but debts. The words struck me like physical blows. My father, my precious father, who had raised me alone after my mother died during childbirth, who had worked day and night in a small garage to send me to university, who had walked me down the aisle with tears of joy in his eyes, believing I was marrying into a family that would cherish me. Your father's debts. Chief Okonkwo finally spoke, his voice heavy with disgust. We paid them all when you married our son. 20 million naira. We bought you from poverty, and what did you give us in return? A daughter. He spat the last word like it was poison. I felt my knees weaken. Yes, Amara was a girl. In their wealthy, traditional family, the first child had to be a son, an heir to the Okonkwo empire. I had failed in their eyes by giving birth to my beautiful daughter. She is your granddaughter, I said, finding strength I didn't know I had. She is innocent. She is a disappointment, Mama Grace snapped. And so are you. Chitty is remarrying in 3 months. We have found him a proper wife from a respectable family, a woman who will give us grandsons. The room spun around me. Remarrying? Had they planned this all along? I looked at Chitty, searching for any sign of the man who had courted me with poetry and promises, who had said my father's profession didn't matter, that love was all we needed. The papers are already filed, Chitty said flatly. The marriage is over. Take the child and go. But I have nowhere. That is not our concern anymore, Mama Grace interrupted. She clapped her hands, and 2 housemaids appeared carrying a single worn bag. My bag from before I married into this family. We are being generous. We have packed some old clothes for you and the child. Now go before I have the security throw you out. I wanted to scream, to fight, to demand my rights. But as I looked at their cold, determined faces, I realized the truth. I had been nothing but a temporary fixture in their lives. A poor girl who had dared to dream she belonged in their world. With shaking hands, I took the bag. Amara's cries had softened to weak whimpers. She was hungry, but I had no strength left to nurse her standing in this house of hatred. I need money for transport, I said quietly, my pride already shattered beyond repair. At least give me that. Chief Okonkwo pulled out his wallet and threw 2,000 naira notes on the marble floor. Pick it up, and never let us see your face again. I stared at the money on the ground. 2,000 naira. Barely enough for a taxi ride in Lagos during a storm. The same family that threw millions away on parties wanted me to grovel for taxi fare. But I had my daughter to think about. Swallowing what remained of my dignity, I knelt and picked up the wet bills while balancing Amara on my hip. As I stood, I looked each of them in the eye. You will regret this, I said softly. Not because I will seek revenge, but because you have thrown away your own blood. My daughter is an Okonkwo, whether you accept her or not. Mama Grace laughed, a cruel sound. An Okonkwo. She is nothing but the daughter of a poor mechanic's child. She will grow up to be nothing, just like you. I walked out into the rain, without another word. The security guard, who had known me for 3 years, looked away as he opened the gate. The massive iron doors closed behind me with a clang that sounded like a prison cell locking. The rain soaked through my clothes within seconds. I had no umbrella, no phone, they had taken everything. I wrapped Amara in my wrapper and held the bag over both our heads as I stumbled down the street of Victoria Island, one of the wealthiest areas in Lagos. Massive houses with lights blazing stood like fortresses around me, but I was homeless. A taxi finally stopped, the driver initially reluctant until I showed him my wet money. Surreal, I told him, giving him my friend Ada's address. It was the only place I could think of. As we drove through the flooded streets, I looked down at Amara's face. She had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from crying. She looked so much like my father with her round cheeks and long eyelashes. My heart broke into a million pieces. I promise you, I whispered to her sleeping form. I promise you that this is not the end. Your grandfather would never have let this happen if he was alive. Somehow, some way, we will rise from this. I will give you the life you deserve. But even as I made the promise, I had no idea how I would keep it. I had no money, no education credentials. They had kept all my documents. I had nothing but a sleeping baby and a bag of old clothes. What I didn't know, as that taxi carried us through the storm-washed streets of Lagos, was that my father had left me something. Something that would change everything. Something that the Okonkwo family, in their arrogance and cruelty, had never bothered to discover. My father, the poor mechanic, had been hiding the secret of a lifetime. And that secret was about to transform my world in ways I could never have imagined. Ada's one-room apartment in Surreal smelled of fried plantains and pepper soup. She held Amara while I peeled off my wet clothes, her eyes filled with tears and rage. They did what? She screamed, causing Amara to startle awake and cry. Those wicked people. Zainab, we have to report them. We have to. To who, Ada? I cut her off, my voice hollow. Who will fight the Okonkwo family? They own half of Lagos. The police, the courts, the government officials, they're all in Chief Okonkwo's pocket. Ada knew I was right. We had both grown up in Mushin, one of Lagos's poorest neighborhoods. We knew how the world worked. The rich crushed the poor, and no one blinked. That first week, I barely existed. I would wake up, feed Amara, stare at the wall, and sleep. Ada worked as a hairdresser in a salon down the street, and she would bring back food and baby supplies, spending her hard-earned money on us. I felt like a burden, another mouth to feed in her already cramped life. You need to snap out of this, Ada said on the 8th day, shaking my shoulder. I know you're hurt, but your daughter needs you strong. We need to figure out your next move. She was right. That afternoon, I forced myself to walk to my father's old garage in Mushin. I hadn't been there since his funeral 2 years ago, shortly before I met Chitty. The Okonkwo family had discouraged me from keeping any ties to my poor past. The garage was smaller than I remembered, sandwiched between a food vendor and electronics repair shop. A faded sign hung crooked, Bellows Auto Care. My father's name, my name, the landlord, Malam Adu, was surprised to see me. Zainab, we heard you married into the wealthy Okonkwo family. What brings you back to this place? I need to see my father's workshop, I said quietly. Is it still locked? He nodded and retrieved a rusty key from his office. No one has been inside since your father died. I kept it locked out of respect for him. He was a good man, that Alhaji Bello. The door creaked open, and the smell of engine oil and metal hit me like a wave of memories. I saw my father's tools hanging neatly on the wall, his workbench with half-finished projects, his small office in the corner where he would let me do my homework while he worked. Tears streamed down my face. Papa, I'm so sorry, I whispered. I married them thinking it would honor you, that it would show the world that your daughter could rise up. But they broke me, Papa. They called you nothing. I don't know what made me walk to his desk. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was his spirit guiding me. The desk drawers were covered in dust. I opened them one by one, old receipts, tool catalogs, my school report cards that he had kept. The last drawer was locked. My heart began to pound. I searched for the key, finally finding it taped under the desk exactly where Papa used to hide spare keys when I was young. Some habits never died. Inside the drawer was a large brown envelope with my name written in my father's careful handwriting. To my daughter Zainab. Open only if I am no longer with you. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were documents. So many documents. Property deeds, company registration papers, bank statements, and a letter in my father's handwriting. I sank into his old chair and began to read, my heart beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. My dearest Zainab, if you are reading this, then I have left this world. I am sorry I could not tell you these things while I was alive. I had my reasons, which I hope you will understand. The man you knew as your father, the simple mechanic, was not the complete truth. I am still your father. That was never a lie. Everything I did for you and your mother's memory. My full name is Alhaji Bello Olamide Adeyemi. 30 years ago, I was not a mechanic. I was the CEO of Adeyemi Industries, one of West Africa's largest manufacturing companies. We produced car parts, machinery, and equipment across 15 African countries. The company was worth billions. When your mother died giving birth to you, something broke inside me. My own family blamed you for her death. My brothers wanted to take you away from me, to raise you themselves while I focused on the business. They said a child would make me weak, that I would lose my edge. I chose you, Zainab. I chose you over everything. I walked away from Adeyemi Industries. I signed over my shares to a trust and disappeared. I became a simple mechanic in Mushin where no one knew the name Adeyemi. I raised you in that small garage, teaching you to be humble, to be kind, to value people over money. But I never gave up control completely. The trust one created had conditions. If I died, everything would be held by trustees until you turned 25 or until you personally claimed it, whichever came first. You are now 24, but you can claim it any time by presenting the documents in this envelope. Zainab, you are the sole heir to Adeyemi Industries. The company has continued to grow under the management I left in place. According to the latest valuation, your inheritance is worth approximately $1.5 billion. I know this will shock you. You will wonder why I made you live in poverty when such wealth existed. But I wanted you to know real life, real struggle, real people. I wanted you to have compassion. Money without character destroys people, my daughter. I have seen it happen. Now that wealth is yours, use it wisely. Use it with the same kindness and strength that you have always shown. Be the woman your mother would have been proud of. All my love, forever and always, Papa. I read the letter 3 times. Then 4. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. $1.5 billion. My father, who had lived in a 2-room apartment and wore the same 3 shirts every week, was a secret billionaire. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I laughed and cried at the same time until Malam Auda knocked on the door asking if I was okay. I'm fine, I called out, my voice strange to my own ears. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. My whole world had just flipped upside down. The Okonkwo family had thrown me out calling me the daughter of a poor mechanic. They had no idea. No idea at all. I spent the next 3 days reading through every document in that envelope. Property deeds for estates in Lagos, Abuja, London, and Dubai. Shareholdings in banks, telecommunications companies, and real estate ventures. Legal documents establishing the trust and the conditions for my inheritance. And a contact, Barrister Yusuf Abdulrahman, my father's personal lawyer and the trustee of the estate. I called the number with trembling fingers, using Ada's phone. Barrister Yusuf speaking. My name is Zainab Bello. Alhaji Bello was my father. There was a long pause. Then, Miss Zainab, we have been waiting for you for 2 years. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Barrister Yusuf's office was in Ikoyi, ironically just 10 minutes from the Okonkwo mansion. The building was sleek and modern, the kind of place where serious money was managed. I wore the best outfit I could borrow from Ada, a simple dress that didn't quite fit. I carried Amara in a borrowed baby carrier. I looked exactly like what I was, a poor single mother who didn't belong in these halls of wealth. But the moment I gave my name at reception, everything changed. The receptionist's eyes widened. She picked up the phone, spoke rapidly, and within seconds, Barrister Yusuf himself appeared. He was a tall man in his 60s with kind eyes. When he saw me, his face softened with something like relief, mixed with sadness. "You have your father's eyes," he said gently. "Please come to my conference room." The conference room could have fit Ada's entire apartment inside it. Barrister Yusuf introduced me to 3 other people: Mrs. Okonkwo, no relation to my in-laws, the CEO who had been managing Adeyemi Industries, Mr. Chin, the chief financial officer, and a young woman named Funmi, who is apparently my new personal assistant. Before we begin with the business details, Barrister Yusuf said, "I want you to know that your father was my best friend. We went to university together. When he walked away from everything to raise you, I thought he was crazy. But over the years, I understood. He was the wisest man I ever knew." He slid a document across the table. "This is the current valuation of your inheritance. Adeyemi Industries has grown significantly in the past 20 years. Your father chose brilliant managers before he left." I looked at the number. $1.48 billion. My hands trembled. "The company operates in 17 African countries now," Mrs. Okonkwo, the CEO, explained. "We manufacture automotive parts, industrial machinery, and we've recently expanded into renewable energy. We employ over 15,000 people." Mr. Chin added, "Your personal liquid assets amount to approximately $120 million in various accounts. Real estate holdings valued at $200 million. The rest is in company shares and investments." I felt dizzy. Yesterday, I was sleeping on Ada's floor. Today I was being told I was worth more than $1 billion. What do I do? I whispered, "I don't know anything about running a company. I studied English literature. I'm just—" "You are Alhaji Bello's daughter," Barrister Yusuf interrupted firmly. "That is enough. The team will continue to manage operations. You don't need to know everything immediately, but you do need to take your place as the owner." Over the next 3 hours, they walked me through everything: the properties, the investments, the company structure. It was overwhelming, but something inside me was waking up. My father had built this. He had protected it for me, and he had trusted me to know what to do with it. "There's one more thing," Barrister Yusuf said as the meeting was ending. "Your father left specific instructions. He said you would know when the time was right to reveal yourself. He trusted your judgment about when to step into this world." I thought about those words all the way back to Ada's apartment. When was the right time? Should I rush to the Okonkwo mansion and throw my new wealth in their faces? But as I watched Amara sleeping peacefully in my arms, I realized that revenge wasn't what my father had taught me. He had taught me wisdom, strategy, patience. I spent the next 6 weeks in secret preparation. Barrister Yusuf helped me recover my original documents, my university certificates, my ID, everything the Okonkwos had kept. We set up new accounts in my name. I received my first cash injection, $5 million to start with. $5 million to start with. I rented a modest 3-bedroom apartment in Lekki, nothing flashy. I enrolled in executive business courses online. I read everything I could about my father's company. I attended board meetings quietly, learning, observing, understanding. And I investigated the Okonkwo family business. What I discovered was fascinating. Chief Okonkwo's construction company was impressive, but heavily leveraged. They had taken massive loans for their latest project, a luxury housing development. They were also in talks with Adeyemi Industries for a supply contract worth $50 million, a contract they desperately needed to stay liquid. The supply contract had been on Mrs. Okonkwo, the CEO's desk for months, waiting for final approval. She had been stalling because something felt off about their financials. "What do you think?" she asked me during one of our meetings. "Should we approve the Okonkwo contract?" I smiled slowly. "Let me think about it." I also hired a private investigator. I needed to know everything about Chidi and his new wife-to-be. Her name was Ngozi, daughter of another wealthy family. The wedding was planned for 2 weeks away. It was going to be the society event of the year. But most importantly, I focused on healing. I took Amara to the best pediatrician. I started therapy to process the trauma of being cast out. I worked out every morning. I ate well. I invested in myself. Ada couldn't believe the transformation. "Zainab, you're glowing," she said one evening. "I mean, I know you came into money, but this is different. You're different." She was right. I was different. The broken woman who had stumbled into her apartment in the rain was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who had discovered that she came from greatness, that she carried her father's legacy in her blood. The night before Chitty's wedding, I made my decision. It was time to step out of the shadows. Time to show the Okonkwo family exactly who they had thrown away. I called Barrister Yusuf. Set up a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. I want to announce my identity as the heir to Adeyemi Industries. I want every media house in Lagos there. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Once you do this, everything changes." I looked at Amara, sleeping in her new nursery, in her beautiful crib, in our safe home. I'm sure. My father didn't raise me to hide. He raised me to lead. The next morning, while Chitty prepared for a society wedding, I prepared for my own unveiling. I wore a custom-made traditional outfit, deep blue with gold embroidery. My hair was styled in elegant braids. I wore my mother's jewelry, pieces my father had kept for me, worth a fortune but priceless because they were hers. The press conference was scheduled for 3 p.m. Chitty's wedding was at 5 p.m. As I stood backstage waiting to be announced, my phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Okonkwo, the CEO. The Okonkwo family just called. They're demanding an immediate answer on their contract. They say they need it before close of business today. I think they're in deeper financial trouble than we thought. I smiled. Tell them we'll have an answer for them after my press conference. Invite them to attend. You're brilliant, she laughed. The conference room was packed. Every major newspaper, TV station, and online media house in Nigeria was present. I could see the confusion on their faces. Who was this young woman claiming to be connected to the legendary Adeyemi Industries? Barrister Yusuf took the podium first. Ladies and gentlemen, 20 years ago, one of Nigeria's most successful businessmen disappeared from public life. Alhaji Bello Adeyemi walked away from a billion-dollar empire to raise his daughter in private. Today, that daughter steps forward to claim her inheritance and take her place in Nigerian business. I present to you Miss Zainab Adeyemi Bello, heir to Adeyemi Industries and one of Africa's youngest billionaires. The cameras flashed as I walked to the podium. I could see the shock on people's faces. I looked so young, and I carried Amara on my hip, a deliberate choice. I wanted them to see me as I truly was, a young mother and a powerful businesswoman. I spoke for 20 minutes. I told them about my father's legacy. I announced my plans for Adeyemi Industries, expansion, job creation, sustainability. I was professional, confident, and clear. And then came the questions. Miss Bello, there are rumors you were recently married into the Okonkwo family. Can you confirm? I smiled calmly. That marriage has been dissolved. I prefer to focus on the future rather than the past. I could see phones buzzing around the room. The news was spreading like wildfire. In the back of the room, I spotted two familiar faces that had just entered, Mama Grace and Chief Okonkwo himself. Their faces were priceless. The Okonkwo family tried to leave the press conference immediately after my announcement, but reporters swarmed them with questions. I watched from the stage as Chief Okonkwo's face turned purple with rage, and Mama Grace looked like she might faint. Chief Okonkwo, a reporter called out, "Did you know your former daughter-in-law was a billionaire heiress? Is it true your son divorced her because she had a daughter instead of a son? Will this affect your business relationship with Adeyemi Industries?" Chief Okonkwo grabbed his wife and pushed through the crowd without answering. But the damage was done. By the time they reached their car, the story was trending on every social media platform in Nigeria. Hashtag poor mechanic's daughter, hashtag billionaire reveal, hashtag Okonkwo family, hashtag Zainab Adeyemi. I finished the press conference with grace, answered a few more questions, and left through a private exit with my security detail, something I now had. Back at my apartment, I fed Amara and checked my phone. It was exploding with messages. Ada had sent me about 50 texts, each one more excited than the last. Girl, you're on every TV station in Nigeria. You're trending #1 on Twitter. The blogs are going crazy. People are calling the Okonkwo's every evil name. But there was one message that caught my attention. It was from an unknown number. Zainab, this is Chitty. We need to talk. Please. I deleted it without responding. Instead, I called Mrs. Okonkwo, the CEO. How are we looking on the Okonkwo supply contract? They've called 6 times in the past hour, she laughed. They're desperate. Their wedding is in 2 hours, and their company stock is dropping because of the bad publicity. Investors are getting nervous about their judgment. Here's what we're going to do, I said calmly. Reject the contract. Tell them Adeyemi Industries has decided to go with another partner. But do it professionally. We're not petty. Are you sure? That's $50 million in revenue. I'm sure. Some money isn't worth it. Besides, I've been looking at other opportunities that are more aligned with our values. As I hung up, my doorbell rang. My security checked the camera and looked at me with surprise. Ma'am, it's Chief Okonkwo and his wife. They're asking to see you. I almost laughed. The same people who had thrown me into the rain now stood at my door. Let them wait 5 minutes. Then send them in. I took those 5 minutes to compose myself, to remember who I was now. Not the broken girl they had discarded, but the daughter of a great man who had taught her dignity and strength. When they entered my living room, their eyes scanned everything, the expensive furniture, the original artwork on the walls, the panoramic view of Lagos. This apartment cost more than most people's houses. Zainab, Chief Okonkwo started, his voice attempting warmth but failing. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. I sat in my armchair, radiating calm. There is no misunderstanding, Chief. You threw me out of your house in the rain with a 3-month-old baby and 2,000 naira. Those are facts, not misunderstandings. Mama Grace tried next, her voice syrupy. My daughter, we didn't know who you truly were. Your father deceived us all. If you had known I had money, you would have treated me like a human being? I interrupted. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Chief Okonkwo's facade cracked. Look, we can make this right. Chitty can cancel the wedding. You two can reconcile. Think of your daughter. She deserves to have her father. My daughter deserves better than a father who abandoned her because she wasn't a boy. She deserves better than grandparents who called her a disappointment. We were hasty, Mama Grace pleaded. We made a mistake. But we're family. Surely you can forgive us. I stood up, signaling the conversation was over. You're not here for forgiveness. You're here because your company needs our supply contract, and because your social standing is in tatters after today's news. You're here because it's expensive to throw away a billionaire. Chief Okonkwo's mask fell completely. His voice turned threatening. You think you can destroy us? We have connections. We have power in this country. And I have something you'll never have, I said softly. I have integrity. My father taught me that power without character is meaningless. Now please leave my home. The contract has been declined. We sent the email 10 minutes ago. You should check your phones. Mama Grace actually checked her phone, and her gasp confirmed it. You can't do this. We have investors depending on that contract. You should have thought about that before you threw your granddaughter into the rain like garbage. Security will show you out. As they were escorted out, Chief Okonkwo turned at the door. You will regret this, Zainab. We will make sure you threaten me again, I said, my voice like ice, and I will buy your company's debt and foreclose on every single one of your properties. Don't test me. I am my father's daughter, and he taught me to be kind, but he also taught me to be strong. After they left, I sat down and let out a long breath. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I had just stood up to the people who had broken me, and I had won. My phone rang. It was Barrister Yusuf. Zainab, I just heard what happened. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. Over the next few weeks, I watched as the consequences unfolded. Chitty's wedding went ahead, but it was a disaster. Half the invited guests didn't show up, embarrassed to be associated with a family after the story went viral. The society blogs ripped them apart. Think pieces were written about how the wealthy treat the poor, about toxic masculinity and son preference, about karma. The Okonkwo construction company lost 3 major investors. Their stock dropped by 40%. They didn't go bankrupt. I wasn't that cruel, but they were significantly weakened. Chitty tried to reach out multiple times. He sent letters, gifts for Amara, messages through mutual friends. I ignored them all. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. Instead, I focused on building. I invested in women-owned businesses across Nigeria. I created a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents, named after my father. I expanded Adeyemi Industries into renewable energy, creating thousands of jobs. And I raised Amara. I took her to the office sometimes, let her sit in board meetings in her baby carrier. I wanted her to grow up seeing her mother as strong and capable. I wanted her to know that her worth wasn't determined by her gender or her circumstances. 1 year later, I stood on the same stage where I had revealed my identity. This time, it was for the grand opening of Bello Memorial Hospital, a state-of-the-art facility in Mushin built on the site of my father's old garage. My father was called a poor mechanic, I told the crowd. But he was rich in the things that mattered: love, integrity, wisdom. This hospital is for the people of Mushin, the community that raised me. It's for everyone who's been called poor or nothing by people who measure worth only in money. As I cut the ribbon, with Amara toddling beside me in her pretty dress, I saw Ada crying happy tears in the front row. I saw Malam awed, beaming with pride. I saw the faces of my community, the people who had always known my father's true wealth had nothing to do with money. Later that evening, back at home, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over Lagos. Amara was asleep in her room. The city sprawled before me, full of lights and life and possibility. My phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Okonkwo, the CEO. The quarterly reports are in. We're up 35%. Your father would be proud. I smiled and typed back. He taught me that success is measured by how many people you lift up, not how high you climb alone. As I hit send, I heard Amara stirring awake. I went to her room and picked her up, holding her close. You know what, baby girl? I whispered. Your grandfather was the richest man I ever knew, not because of his money, but because he knew what mattered. And I promise you, I will teach you the same lessons. You will grow up knowing that your worth comes from within, not from what others think of you. She gurgled and grabbed my nose, making me laugh. I thought about the night I had been thrown out into the rain, broken and hopeless. That woman seemed like a stranger now. Pain had transformed me, yes, but not in the way the Okonkwo family had intended. Instead of destroying me, they had forced me to discover who I truly was. I was Zainab Adeyemi Bello, daughter of a great man, mother of a beautiful girl, CEO of a billion-dollar empire. But most importantly, I was someone who had learned that true wealth isn't counted in bank accounts. It's measured in character, in kindness, in the courage to rise again after being knocked down. The Okonkwo family had thrown me out with nothing. I had returned with everything that mattered. And that was the sweetest victory of all. Lesson of the story. Sometimes the people who break us give us the greatest gift. They show us our own strength. Zainab's story reminds us that true power doesn't come from money or status, but from knowing who we are and refusing to let anyone else define our worth. She didn't seek revenge. She simply lived well, and in doing so, proved that the best response to cruelty is grace combined with strength.